You don't want to get lost in the middle of your painting session trying to find the right colors. You want to start straight away with the right colors. How do you find the right colors? Using your very own color wheel. I'm going to show you how to do your very own color wheel, which is going to help you make color decisions, informed and good and right and beautiful color decisions as you paint. Now, what I want you to do is just pick one of your yellows, one of your blues, and one of your reds. It doesn't have to be primary colors. If you are a complete beginner and you have to go out and buy colors now based on this video, then yes, please go ahead and buy the primary colors. But otherwise, if you have your favorite yellow, your favorite blue, and you have a magenta somewhere, you are all set. Another thing you need is a nice big tube of white, because you will be regulating how light or dark your colors are by adding white. The Impressionists used a lot of white. In fact, Monet, when somebody visited his studio, there were piles and piles of snowy white mountains, which was just basically his white paint. Colors have three properties. How light or how dark a color is, that's a value decision that you will be making as you paint. The second one is hue. Just means that which one of the actual colors you are going to use. Are you using a yellow orange, or a full orange, or a red? And the third one is chroma, meaning how vibrant, how much of a punch in the nose that color is on your painting compared to all the others around them. So everything that we are talking about when we talk about colors, it is a relative term. So the same medium color, the same medium blue will look like an almost black. It will act like black if you put it in a sea of brilliant light colors. You don't need to use black for something to have that same effect on the viewer. You can use colors, and that's what the Impressionists were great at. They introduced colors where the old masters were just using boring dark earth tones. They only had access to earth pigments in quantities. It was during the Impressionist times, when it was at the time of the Industrial Revolution, that man-made pigments were invented, and they were widely available in a tube format, okay, that you could carry around in a box. You could go out and paint straight from, you could paint the pond by setting up your easel on the side of the pond. That was not possible before that. But it was during the Impressionist times, a lot of beautiful, vibrant colored pigments that used to be extremely expensive, like ultramarine blue, which is a crazy beautiful strong blue. We use it all the time, but that was more expensive than gold back then. So all of a sudden, this was all widely available, and you could carry it too, because it was made in factories. When you think about Impressionism and how colorful, how bold they were, how immediate the effect that there is, you could tell that they were working very fast. They weren't fiddling like artists beforehand. They weren't doing that. They went at it, and they captured what was in front of them, what they looked at, and they put it down on the canvas very quickly to create the effects that we see. But before, that was not available. The technique was not available. Everything was very expensive. Pigments were expensive. It was you had to grind them. Now let's crack on with our color wheel. Now, the reason why I want you to make your own color wheel is that I'm aware that online, if you look up color wheel, it will be all over the internet. You can download it. It has charts. It has all sorts of. If you try to download it and go by that, it's not going to work. So you need to get to know your own colors, the ones that are at your disposal, right there at your fingertips on your palette. Let's get going with this. So these are a couple of palettes and a couple of palette knives that I use. In fact, this is just a collection of the various tools that I work with. My fine brush, I sometimes use this, but very often I work with just a basic sponge, which is right here. So these are actual classic palette knives. You can see that they basically, they would double as a butter knife. You could butter your toast with them. These are the ones that traditionally were used to mix pigments on a glass slab with linseed oil to make the appropriate paste for painting with oils. I will be using one of these. Palette knives come in all sizes and shapes. I would rather use a larger knife, and now I will go on to my palette here. This is a big serving platter, and I'm going to put my blue here. Yeah. My yellow. And my carmine red. You could be using a magenta, or you could be using a primary red. It doesn't matter. Now, there you go. Another thing I need is white, right in the middle. Phthalo blue pigment. I have my red, which is a magenta sort of pigment, and I have a primary yellow here. So you also need some sort of something to wipe your palette knife clean. This is a baby wipe. I'm going to use this to clean my knife because you don't need to wash your knife. I take a little bit of my yellow, and I take a little bit of my yellow on the other side, and I just put it there. This is key. When people mix pigments, when people mix a new color, they very often take the whole blob and then they want to turn it into green. Don't do that. Use more of your lighter color and pick up a little bit, tiny bit of your darker color and start mixing on the edge. Now, what you see me do is using the bottom of the palette knife. I'm using the bottom of the palette knife. You see that? You don't want to put any paint on the top. This shank here, it's for lifting your knuckles away from your painting so you don't mess up your beautiful artwork, but you keep your hands away from your working surface. So use the bottom of that, the bottom of the palette knife. If it's not dark enough, you can take a little bit more of your darker color and add that. But you see that depending on what pigment you are using, it's very easy to go overboard and turn it into an almost totally blue green. So just be aware of this, that usually the color that's right in between your, like an in-between medium green, you don't use the same amount of yellow and blue. You need a little bit more of your yellow because your yellow is a weaker color. It will, and your phthalo blue, if you are using the same pigment that I do, that has a very high tinting strength, meaning just a tiny bit will modify another color. I wipe my knife because this is when you need a clean knife to work with. This is a very typical mistake that people don't wipe their knives and they start working with that green, those blue pigments still on the knife. No, you don't want that. Same thing applies here when you want to mix your orange. You pick up a little bit of your magenta. And if it's not enough, then you start adding a little more. Always use the bottom of your palette knife for mixing. That's it. And the more yellow you add, the more it is like a nice deep dark sunset color. So you can easily mix that. Now what I'm going to do here again is mixing my purple with a clean knife. So I pick up my red, because out of these two, my red is the lighter, slightly lighter color, so it's more of a magenta. And then I pick up my blue, careful with it, because now I know that that blue is a very strong color. It will modify, it will turn the whole thing a very, very dark color very quickly. And now look at that. I'm holding close enough the camera that it does look black. It's not black. You see that it's not black when I pull it off, pull it away a little bit on the white palette. But what we are going to do here is also, we want to have like the full nice beautiful range in between the blue and the red, and maybe have a little bit of something that's in between my purple and my red. So you want to have a nice full range of your colors. Now this is something that I do on my palette, and this is how I use my palette. I begin then working with any of the colors that I pick for a basic, for just the background painting. But also be aware there is that pile of white. Now, how do you make lighter tints? Those pastel colors are called tints. Yes, you can dilute acrylics with water, but you can also mix a little bit of white to it. And then you take a little bit of white and then you mix it there as well. So you see the lighter violets, you see the lighter blues, you see the lighter greens, turquoises first, yeah. And then all the greens. And I've noticed that I actually have a tiny bit of the violet there, so I don't want it. I'm just pulling it off the edge of my palette here. And I have an almost clean palette knife as a result as well. So there it is. And now I can have a lighter yellowy green. And of course, the yellow can be lighter. It can be a very nice, gentle yellow. You add the same white to your darker yellow and the same white to your orange. And you create these beautiful pastel-y peachy colors. And you begin to see the full range of what you can use, all the colors that you can use for painting. Now this is basically your color wheel on the palette. You can use it as it is, you can spray it with a little bit of water, all the colors that you need at your hand. Now, let's go and do the color wheel on a paper. I have an A3 size paper. And this is something that you can use for use as a reference as you paint. You also might want to do a reference color wheel before you start painting if you are using a different set of colors from what we have here. So let's say you want to use you want to create a different set of greens or different set of purples, maybe stronger purples. You might want to use ultramarine instead of this phthalo blue. They will create very different colors. But for now, it's just, I would just go and start with a bit of a strip of yellow. Then, of course, there is the other third will be all magenta, and using my third finger, I will create the blue third. Now you want to start mixing these up, okay? You can just start mixing and have the entire full beautiful colors, all of them. Everything that these three colors can mix, they will literally be with your, at your fingertips. Wipe your fingers and then carry on creating. Let me see, I need a bit more of this red. So creating your violet. You see that's a very dark color. It doesn't necessarily look like, it doesn't look very much of a purple. Up close it would look purple, and I'm going to take a picture of it later so you will see that. And then of course you can pick up your white and just see what all these colors would look like in a lighter mix. So you can create this inner circle of more just lighter tints. Of course, this one here, lighter violets, and all your nice light colors. There it is. Lighter greens, lighter turquoises. So it helps you to see what you have on your palette, what you can work with, and what are the colors that you can create. Now I would add the names of these colors. So this is phthalo blue, which is PB15. That's the name of the pigment. And then this one is PR202. It's called Carmine Red. So this is PR, yeah, PR202. And then my third one is just primary yellow. Yeah. Now I'm going to show you what to do with colors that are just way too bold, way too strong, way too vibrant. You can tone them down. So these are opposite. You can see that blue is opposite from orange, red is opposite from green on the color wheel, yellow is opposite from purple. What if your yellow is too strong, too bold, too vibrant? What you can do is pick up a tiny bit of the color from the other end, and I can add some of that. I can mix it up with my yellow. And what happens is I create this muted, darker version of that very vibrant color. And of course you have like the full range in between that. Same thing with your orange. If you have a nice vibrant orange that is just too vibrant. You can pick up a tiny bit of blue. That's gonna be way too much. And you should be able to create, depending on how much red and how much yellow you have, but you can actually mute down the vibrancy of that color. This orange had a lot more yellow than red in it, so obviously adding a little bit of blue will create this greenish muddy color. But this is how you create muddy colors, and as I showed you that you clean your palette knife between each mixture is how you keep your colors clean. So clean colors, you just work with a clean knife in between each one of those colors as you mix them. Then you wipe it clean and then you mix the next two. If you want less vibrant colors, you want a little bit of more of those earth tones, you don't need to reach for any other color. You can still work with these just by adding a bit of the complementary colors. So these are complementary colors, the color that's here and the color that's here. So this green and this red, the two of them are complementary. So I'm picking up a little bit more of my red, and look at that green over there. That's actually a very strong, dark, mossy green. So you can muddy all of your colors if you need to. If your blue is way too strong, you can get a pinch of your orange. So just have some fun, you know, experiment with these colors, see what they will look like, how you can dampen them, how you can... Let's have a little bit of this green added to my red, maybe with some water. And you see that this is going to be less vibrant. It's a darker and less vibrant version. Now, of course, if you want less vibrant but lighter, then you can add a pinch of white to that existing mixture, and then you create these lighter, nice grays, like various different grays you can create just by adding, lightening up that mixture. Like, where was this? Yeah, you can create that as well, and just try it out. So this, as much as it looks like a mess, yes it is, but look at my fingers. Yours are probably even messier than mine. And I have a palette knife that I started using. So if you have never painted or never mixed colors with palette knives, then this is how you do it. You keep it clean, you wipe it clean afterwards with a rag or with a baby wipe, and make sure that you are working with the bottom of the knife and not the top, okay? It's very easy to keep your colors neat and clean. Keep all the colors. As you run out of one color or another, make sure that you put it back. So if you need more yellow, just add it on the same side of the palette where your yellow was originally. You want to make sure that you reach for a color and it's there. It's right there. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to dig in a huge box trying to figure out, oh, was it this yellow? Was it this yellow? No. You have everything that you need at hand. Now another thing, this one, this is your color wheel for this particular painting session if you are using this red, this blue, and this yellow. If you change any one of these, because let's say you are not happy with your oranges, they are not vibrant enough, or you are not happy with your purples, they are not vibrant enough, you can change any one of these, and then I recommend that you make another one of these color wheels with the names written, the pigment names on it, so you know exactly which 3 pigments are fine for that particular color wheel. If you are ever working outdoors and you don't want to bring along a whole big box of paints, then it's very good to go through some of these, decide ahead of time based on some watercolor studies that you did or based on just having done a walk there, and you decide which 3 colors, which color wheel would actually suit that subject, so you can paint anything you want with that. Having said that, all this is not a life sentence. So it's not like you need to live with these 3 colors for the rest of your life, not even for the rest of your painting. But this is something for you to check. This is how you double check before you crack on with your work. Before you start painting anything, you check if you have everything you need for that painting to create the mood you are after, to reproduce some of the light and light effects that you want to paint whatever the subject requires. Okay, if it's a landscape, you will pay attention to those colors. If it's a still life with flowers, then you will want to have those colors especially right. Whatever is the most important color of your most important, of the subject of the painting. So this is something to get started with, and start collecting these papers. This is a great way of keeping track of the colors that you are using. If you are just starting out, I highly recommend that you only use 3 colors and learn how to use those 3 colors. Learn everything they can do for you. Learn the full extent of what are the possible mixtures that they can give you, how much of one paint will mix up with how much of another to create one certain color. So you want to learn everything about those 3 pigments. Don't jump around. I've seen people get lost at sea, having received the 72 color set. And hallelujah, fantastic. Don't use it. Don't. That's the best and the fastest way to get completely frustrated with painting, is picking up the 24 or the 36 or the 72 color sets. No. Stick with 3 colors. Make sure you learn everything they can do for you, and make sure it's the right 3 colors for you or for that painting. If it's not the right 3 colors, then you can change it right here and now before you start painting. Okay, so that's all about colors, how to create your own color wheel, how to double check that these colors are the right colors for you, how to pick those right colors, and what are all the possible mixtures, how to mix every single color you need, starting with just 3.